Few bands in recent times have caused such differences of opinion like Korn. Their music has been labeled dark, anarchic, and a threat to society. Korn's music is indeed some of the hardest edge to emerge for many years. It is also inherently electric, mixing heavy metal, rap and hip-hop, funk, disco, and punk pop jazz. How this fascinating musical hybrid came to be one of the world's largest bands is one of modern rock's most compelling stories. Probably the last time a band caused such despair and outrage in the church and teaching authorities was over 30 years ago, when a bunch of musicians were also rebelling against authority and the times they were living in. They called themselves the Rolling Stones, and many journalists wrote that they would never last. Well, the Stones are still rocking, and who knows, perhaps in 30 years from now, Korn will be doing the same. But to start at the beginning. James Shaffer was born on June 6, 1970, and the seeds of Korn were sown in Bakersfield, California, where in the bedrooms of several high school kids jamming together after hours, growing up in a small town, Shaffer was often bored. One momentous evening, James caught his finger in the chain of his bicycle, and he lost the tip of his finger. The local doctor recommended that the boy take up a hobby to rehabilitate the injured finger. Little did the doctor realize what he was unleashing upon an unsuspecting world. James picked up a guitar. He took to the 6 strings like a natural. He was always playing that old guitar. It was like he had found who he was meant to be. He was in a world of his own. James joined his first band, hooking up with bassist Reggie Arvisu, drummer David Silveria, and Richard Morales on vocals. The band was called LAPD. We started calling James Monkey because his splayed-out feet looked like monkey's hands. The 4 young musicians very quickly outgrew their small hometown of Bakersfield and decided that they would move to Huntington Beach. They played any gig they could get around L.A. The final piece of the jigsaw fell into place when Brian Welsh joined the band as a supplementary guitarist to beef up their live show. Welsh had been responsible for teaching Monkey some of his first guitar tunes when, as teenagers, they jammed together in his bedroom. Welsh was nicknamed O-Head for a very good reason. Man, I tell you, this dude had some mother of a cranium, one of the band was heard to say. Welsh was soon performing in LAPD around the rock venues of LA. It was round about this time that the young band put out 2 releases, both without any participation from Head, who only joined them on stage. The releases were the EP Love and Peace and Dude in 1989. These were followed by the album Who's Laughing Now in 1991, both on Triple X Records, home to Jane's Addiction and Cradle of Thorns. Meanwhile, back in the hometown of Bakersfield, Jonathan Davis, a vocalist unknown to LAPD, was screaming his lungs out every night in his own local band. At the age of 3, he'd started playing musical instruments. Davis's childhood was a painful and traumatic affair. His parents were divorced before he was 4 years old, and his father's remarriage proved a very difficult period in the young boy's life. This persisted well into his adulthood. He lived with a succession of relatives as well as his parents. Perhaps the most traumatic event in his young life was the fact that he was the victim of abuse from someone outside his family. Specific details surrounding the abuse have never openly been discussed in public or in the press. Davis has repeatedly, when questioned on this painful episode, refused to be drawn on the subject, instead reserving his torment for his lyrics, the vehicle in which he allows the audience to glimpse his tortured soul. Davis's father was a gigging musician who had been a member of the Buck Owens Country and Western Band. This ensured that he grew up surrounded by music and musicians. His father ran a music store, but eventually branched out and bought a recording studio from his friend Buck Owens. By the age of 5, Davis was playing a drum kit bought for him by his grandmother, who adored the boy and wanted him to be happy. Davis was good enough that on occasion he was allowed to sit in with his father's disco and cover bands. Davis loved music and playing so much, he turned his attention to learning other instruments at school. Much to everyone's trepidation, except for his grandmother, who was Scottish, he decided to tackle the bagpipes. He excelled on pipes, and their plaintive cry was to become part of the unusual and distinctive sound that was corn. Davis would spend as much of his time as he could in his father's studio, where he would tape his early songs, distributing them around his school to classmates and friends. This may have been his way of trying to make friends, but it didn't always work. If his home life was one of problems and change, his school life was, if anything, often more depressing. He was attracted to art, literature, and the theater. His musical tastes at this time in his formative years gravitated towards the new romantic bands coming out of England like Duran Duran. This band, especially vocalist Simon Le Bon and bassist John Taylor, inspired Davis to wear eyeliner and makeup around school, which he continued into his professional career on stage. For now, however, his cosmetic preferences did little to ingratiate him to the school's bullies, who quickly taunted him for being gay. Despite this not being the case, Davis's misery was nevertheless compounded by their cruelty. Rather than conform, he rebelled against the bullies and eventually had the letters HIV tattooed on his arm, even adopting the initials as a defiant nickname. Unsettled at home, perpetually unhappy at school, and bored around town, he has described growing up in Bakersfield as like living in a Stephen King novel. Davis decided to apply for a job with a difference at the local morgue. When he was finally thrown out of the family home at 18, he enrolled at the San Francisco School of Mortuary Science. After qualifying, he got a job at the Kern County Coroner's Office. At the same time, earning good money, Davis also moonlighted as an undertaker in a funeral home. By his own admission, Jonathan Davis was a deeply disturbed young man. His parents' divorce and the school bullying had given him little normality as a growing boy. Now he found himself in one of the most psychologically challenging jobs known to man, daily contact with the dead. Davis later claimed that he was attracted to mortuary work out of a mordant love of horror films, but he also told Livewire magazine that it has had an effect on me being surrounded by death. I've learned to appreciate my life. He went on to say, "You have no idea what I see." The experience of working in a mortuary only added to the discord building up in Davis's head. Witnessing such things as the corpse of a tiny baby, sexually abused and brutally killed by its own father, cut deep into his psyche. This disturbing episode would surface later in Korn lyrics. The repeated trauma of pulling broken bodies from car crashes and having to eventually prepare them for burial profoundly affected him too. One of the ways in which Davis dealt with these traumas was to join a band and exorcise his demons on stage. Davis's aforementioned group was called Sex Art, a self-proclaimed Ministry Meets Pearl jam rip-off band. Sex Art consisted of Davis on vocals, David DeRue on bass, Ray Solis on guitar, and Dennis Shin on drums. Like LAPD, they loved to perform and would play wherever and whenever they could, although their only release was in 1992 when they had a track included on the compilation album Cultivation 92. It was at this time that fate was about to intervene and create one of those legendary moments that have shaped rock and roll since its inception. Monkey and Head dropped into a Bakersfield bar one night where Sex Art were performing. Initially unimpressed, the duo got up to leave, but as they headed for the door, they were stopped in their tracks by the sound of Davis's voice. Schaffer and Welsh knew immediately that Sex Art's singer was ideal for their band. Davis needed little encouragement and duly left Sex Art to join LAPD, who had rechristened themselves Creep. LAPD's vocalist, Richard Morales, reciprocated by joining Sex Art, who similarly changed their name to Supermodel. With Davis now a full member of Creep, the final piece of the jigsaw was in place for the band that was shortly to become Korn. The lineup was established as Davis on vocals, Monkey and Head on guitars, Fieldy on bass, and David Silveria on drums. The technically accomplished musicianship of the four original members was seamlessly complemented by Davis's unique vocal style, a mixture of primal scream and raw-throated metal angst. Monkey later told Max TV in New Zealand that our singer Morales was a real psycho, so we kicked him out and replaced him with another psycho. Davis appealed to them as a complicated yet clearly highly intelligent young man. His suitability was confirmed by the fact he was going against his father's wishes, who had demanded that his son should not go into the music business. However complicated Davis may have been, he nevertheless understood his potential and value to this new band. His lyrics brought something new to their sound, giving a new depth and a darker, edgier atmosphere. Davis told Faces magazine that when Creep heard my lyrics, it brought out more darker tones, and the songs just started growing. Myth has it that Korn got their name from an unfortunate sexual mishap involving sweet corn experienced by a gay couple, whose story the band overheard at a party. Their distinctive logo was the result of a sketch Davis drew with his left hand, in which he deliberately turned the R around to look as though a child had penned the letters. Childhood and children's experiences have rarely been far from the fore in Korn world. Although a psychic had once told Davis that he would join a band and achieve huge success, it didn't come overnight, but even in these early days of Korn, it wasn't far away. Their first demo tape, Niedermeyer's Mind, contained 4 songs: Daddy, Predictable, Blind, Alive. Their early sound was more metal and less varied than later material, but clearly signaled the way forward. One of the main influences on the band at this time was Faith No More, not so much for the sound of the band, but for their attitude and the sense of artistic freedom they represented. There was something beyond metal, beyond punk or glam rock. The band played hundreds of early gigs, slowly building a firm live following, assisted by mailing out their demo and leaflets to audiences. Their battered truck pulled a trailer full of instruments from venue to venue. Developing their own unique style, their blend of metal and rap reminded eager reviewers of bands as diverse as Pantera, Anthrax, Public Enemy, and Rage Against the Machine. They quickly gained a reputation for blasting audiences into submission, and bands were often intimidated by having to follow them on stage. In every sense, Korn were a hard act to follow. Offers apparently came from Atlantic and RCA, and a number of meetings were held with Sony executives. Because of the obvious restraints and demands that the big record companies wanted to place on the band, they decided not to rush into signing a deal. Their instincts and belligerence paid off. Before too long, Korn were offered a dream deal by Immortal, an offshoot label of Epic, who could offer them the freedom of a small independent label with the financial backing of a major corporation. Korn developed a tremendous studio sound to match their heavy live show, complementing their traditional electric guitars with unusual 7-string Ibanez models, tuning these even lower than their already extra deep pitch. This meant that the twin guitarists could build new chord structures lower down the musical spectrum than other bands. Silveria's small, high-volume drums punched out harder rhythms than the deeper, traditional metal drum sound. A retuned 5-string bass completed the massive attack of sound that the band constructed. Across the mix, they created a scratchy, treble-end sound, in many ways approximating the sampling sound of hip-hop.
We go back and forth between some of these amps. Mainly we run in Mesa Boogie and then and the Marshall together. But for this particular tune, we're doing the two Mesas together because it just sounds so large.
Right on. Tell me a little bit about some of these axes. Now, you've got a custom Ibanez here you got going here. This is designed especially for you, right?
Yeah, this one I designed myself with the tiger maple. And they stained it black. And then I did the little design, little crown here.
Very nice.
All chrome hardware, humbucker pickups.
Nice. You got some spare babies laying around here or what?
This one's this is just a stock kind of Thrasher guitar. Actually, this one sounds really well. Yeah, it's like one of the best ones. But it's just a bit speed up, but it sounds real good. This one is guitar head designed. It's got the thicker body on it. It's firewood.
Right on.
I've broken 2 or 3 of them. We use some effects pedals when the part needs it. Big Muffs, Univibe. This one is a new favorite right here. It's the Roto Vibe. Wah pedal, tremolo, flange, small stone pedal. I like the small stone. That's cool. And Memory Man, and there's another one that's not in here called Electric Mistress that is one of my favorites.
Korn contains some of the rawest music around. Daddy was a song that the band rarely played live, as Davis found the recording and any subsequent performance too upsetting. Faggot ridiculed the jocks and bullies who had called Davis gay at school, yet typically this song was seen as homophobic by some myopic reviewers. Clown dealt with a guy who insulted the band at a live gig and who was dealt with by people at the venue. Other highlights of the debut album were Blind, worked up from the original Sex Art track, and Chutes and Ladders, whose nursery lyrics appealed to Jonathan's interest in morbid medieval nursery rhymes. Need To was another song using older material, this time a riff from the old LAPD song Excuse Me. Dark and troubling, Korn also has moments of lightness. Helmet in the Bush is about a little lack of virility problem experienced after taking speed. The album appeared to deal primarily with childhood. The cover art featured a young girl on a swing, beside her the huge shadow of an unseen adult. Korn developed a fascinating mix of troubling, provocative material and morbid humor. It was obvious to the audiences who attended their gigs and the people who bought their CDs that Davis's lyrics were flowing from his troubled heart. The heart he was opening to their fans made them realize that this was a band with something different to say and a new way to say it. Korn made it, pretty quickly by some band standards, but they worked very hard to get there. Korn was released in July 1994, and the band played literally hundreds of gigs to promote it. They shared stages with Pain, Biohazard, and Sick of It All, and opened for major acts such as Ozzy Osbourne, Megadeth, and Marilyn Manson, artists who until recently had been no more to the band than idols, admired from afar. Now Korn were sharing the same stage. Word of mouth and extensive airplay meant the Korn's unique sound was getting heard by more and more people. Blind got increasing coverage on radio and the video appeared regularly on MTV. Much of 94 and 95 was spent this way. The never-ending tour for the debut album also took the band to Europe, where they played at the colossal and prestigious UK Donington Festival. In October 1995, Davis and his girlfriend Renee found some spare time to celebrate the birth of their first son, Nathaniel Houseman Davis. The boy was eventually to be called Nathan, and was a surprise to his father, who had been expecting a girl. He'd even decided upon a name for her, Salam Dementia. The birth of Nathan was a settling influence in Davis's life, giving him a perspective on his own father's experience of parenthood, as well as making him aware of his responsibilities as a dad himself. He described fatherhood to alternative press as the single most awesome experience you'll ever have in your entire life. Having a son is probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, a bunch you got little kids running around. What's it like being a rocker and a dad at the same time? Been hip-hop my whole life. Fun. And I noticed it was very cool. No smoking allowed in here while the kids were around. Good.
As soon as they came off the road, Korn hit the Malibu studio again to record their follow-up album. Life is Peachy took only 4 months to record, essentially rushed out to meet the demand of the early Christmas market in October 1996. Fortunately, the hard studio work and endless touring of the band was vindicated when the album entered the Billboard chart at number 3. The band were proud of their new record, although with hindsight, they later admitted that the album was rushed, both in the recording and in its release. Nonetheless, the second album was filled with intriguing textures and musical shapes, keener rhythms, and an absolutely vast wall of sound. Challenging and to many of its audiences offensive, the album included Adidas, a breakthrough release for the band. 3 different mixes of the song were released in the United States, highlighting the band's groove, power, and funk. The title referred both to the band's chosen line of sportswear, they were sponsored by Adidas, and to the schoolboy acronym, All Day I Dream About Sex. Mixing the cultural messages even further, the video saw the band members transformed into corpses reminiscent of Jonathan's former career. It Was Pronounced Cunt was planned as the first single released to radio stations, intended to goad the media into playing it or banning it. After lengthy discussions and arguments, the band withdrew from this plan, but with Korn's sales approaching 1 million and a top 3 album just released, they knew that they had power and influence and were ready to play the game. The song is often read as misogynistic, but Davis claimed the targets of the song were specific people rather than women in general. He told the media that, "It's more subconscious bitching at all the women who've been with me in my life."
Who's that? Yeah. Skanky Spice. Skanky Spice. I haven't met her yet.
What is Spice?
The Spice Girl.
What's that?
Oh, everyone digs at least one Spice Girl.
I know you're talking. I like Posh Spice.
Posh Spice? Exactly. That's exactly, John. That's what the Spice Girls are like. Everyone's digging them, but no one's saying they are.
Elsewhere on the album, Chi explored alcohol and drug abuse, while Good God is an attack on an acquaintance who had used and abused his friendship with Davis. Wicked is an Ice Cube song covered from Davis's Idol's own Predator album. Ass Itch, the last song to be written for the album, is a venting of the frustration Davis felt at having to revisit all his demons in public. He often felt that he was writing for an audience who were just as likely to misunderstand him as otherwise. Life is Peachy established Korn as one of the most considerable American bands of the era. Where Korn had dealt in the most part with Davis's childhood, the second album was broader in scope. The lyrical content was expanding beyond just Davis's life experiences. Adding to the mix was an increased musical sophistication, but also more of life outside Davis's own psyche. Korn became the first band in history to use the internet for an interactive radio broadcast, promoting the album by playing songs live and answering questions from fans. With almost fanatical zeal, this stroke of marketing genius showed that Korn were not just another dumb rock band high on chemicals and women. Korn immediately then hit the road again. Everywhere they went, they were making new fans too. One of the most impressive elements of the band is that beneath the assault of their sound and the abrasion of their lyrics, they are renowned for being amiable and approachable. Early in 1997, the band celebrated their first Grammy nomination as Best Metal Performers, a good start to a good year for the band. They were also asked to play on Lollapalooza, the groundbreaking traveling festival that was the brainchild of former Jane's Addiction frontman Perry Farrell. On the same bill were The Prodigy, Tricky and James from the UK, plus Snoop Doggy Dogg and Tool, to name but a few. In April, David Silveria married Shannon Bellino, having her name tattooed onto his back to join, among others, the Korn logo. In July, the band's momentum was stunted when they were forced off the Lollapalooza tour after Monkey contracted what at first appeared to be a life-threatening case of meningitis. The band had only completed 14 of the 33 dates they were committed to, but without their guitarist, they could not perform. Manager Jeff Quatinez announced through Music News that the band is a family and they just couldn't have done these dates without him. Whenever they take the stage, they need to be together. Fortunately, the infection proved only to be a fairly weak viral strain of the disease. After a brief break, the guys prepared to get back in the studio to start work on yet another album.
So how is this record different from the last one, or the last two?
Oh, it don't sound like a demo. It doesn't sound like a shitty album. It's really good.
So what were you guys doing to prepare for the writing? You said you were writing for 4 months, and now you're recording it. What was the process there?
Writing.
And did you guys, was it time? Were you guys ready to do it, or did you guys have a date where you said, well, we have to go in no matter what?
We were ready. No, we've kind of had a bug up our ass, because when you play songs for so long, you want to start writing new shit. So we did. We went in there and started, and we just had in our minds we're going to take our time and make every song incredible, because like the last times we brushed shit and things we weren't happy with, and we're totally confident of this album, so it's really exciting.
They wanted to get an album out every 14 months, breaking the mold of globally successful acts who often take 5 years between projects. In August 1997, David and Shannon's son, David Jr., was born, and in September, Reggie and his girlfriend Sheila also had a baby daughter, Serena Ray. Early in '98, the band gave birth to a baby of a different kind when they formed their own record label, Elementary. Korn constantly brought other bands to the attention of record companies, who then went on to sign lucrative record deals. Best known amongst these are Limp Bizkit and Sugar Ray, and Korn felt that they were missing out. If the bands they recommended were so great, why not sign them to their own label and give them support and direction themselves?
Whose brainchild is the record label? What's that mean? We all dropped out.
Our managers came up with the idea.
And you guys just went along with it?
Yeah, we just got an idea together, and we went to
Don't get happy, Peter.
Freeze Records and cut a deal with them, so we're partners now.
And was it a good deal? So how did you pick? What do you guys listen to for in a band that you want to sign?
Melody.
Originality.
Originality more. Good hair. Good hair.
Yes, and
hard hair. Hard.
And apparently the guys in Orgy, the first band,
No eyebrow.
most of them have the spiked hair or
one black eye. We're going to take them out on tour everywhere we go, and talk about them and everything we do, and help them, and
basically kiss their ass.
And then we're going to open for them next year.
Wait, aren't they supposed to kiss your ass?
Nah, I want a house.
Korn would themselves stay with Immortal, but their first signing for Elementary was Orgy, a dark L.A. death pop band. Their guitar player, Amir Darak, told the media how they had received equally good offers from other more established labels, but chose to go with Elementary because they offered them more creative control.
Did you fight with them? Did you get a good deal out of them?
No, we got a great, everything was cool. Like you said, we've been friends for quite a while, and everything worked out perfect. Couldn't be happier.
Korn's own increasing influence was recognized in February of this year in a second consecutive Grammy nomination for Best Metal Performers. Inevitably, Korn's surge of fame had its negative side. Not long after the Grammys, Korn found themselves splashed across many headlines when a Michigan high school banned a pupil for wearing a Korn t-shirt. The image on the shirt bore only the word Korn, but when a member of staff implied that this represented something indecent, vulgar, and obscene, the band took a cease and desist order against the school authority. They rightly claimed that the actual word Korn represented none of these things, but once the newspapers got hold of the story, the issue made national headlines. Even so, avoiding direct confrontation, the school's argument became more about uniformity of dress code than about particular references to certain bands. If a kid couldn't say Korn on his t-shirt, would his brother be allowed to say Garth Brooks or Amy Grant on his? At one point, the media, realizing it was onto a good thing, camped outside the school, giving away Korn t-shirts as the students passed by. Keen to fuel their reputation for innovation, the band launched Korn TV in March, thereby airing a series of weekly hour-long sessions on the internet, including live studio performances. The exercise was another in intimately bringing band and fans together, allowing an unprecedented insight into a major band's lifestyle, mixing bizarre guests with advice on dreadlock development and the occasional bit of kinky fetishism. In May, Fieldy married Sheila, his girlfriend and the mother of his child, while in July, Brian Welsh's wife gave birth to their daughter, Janaea Marie. Korn as a band had become a real family affair. As a result of this, the band couldn't make the European leg of Ozfest. Finally, the month of August saw the release of the long-awaited new album, Follow the Leader, recorded at NRG Studios in North Hollywood. In making their third album, Korn claimed to have spent $3,000 a week on booze. With so many children being born into Korn, it is not surprising that after recording Life is Peachy so quickly, this latest album took 9 months to put together. The album's opener, It's On, is a heavy rock track with Davis leaping through 100 different vocal hoops to croon, whisper, and scream his way through the material. Appearing with the band are guests including Ice Cube, Cheech Marin from the legendary comedy duo Cheech and Chong, and Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit. Fred penned an exquisite little trading of verbal riffs with Jonathan on All in the Family. The pair taunted and jibed at each other, Fred saying that the band needed a biscuit to save itself, and John telling Fred he looked like a member of the team band Hanson. Working with Ice Cube was Jonathan's dream come true, and on Children of the Corn, the frontman's hero gives a generation of disenfranchised kids a rallying call. The blend of pop guitar and hip-hop is right on the button, and David told Circus Magazine that the coolest thing for me is when the kids come up to me at the shows and say, "I've been through that," or "You helped me a lot."
The alternative scene has all been full bubblegum pop, and I think it's just time for change. People are ready to get a little more aggressive. It's getting boring.
Cameltosis features MC Tree Harson from Farside in a mood likely to offend feminists. The band are not dissing women as such, but writing about painful experiences where women have been to blame. The hip-hop breaks up the album well, covering the heavy music with diversionary rapping. On Earache in My Eye, Jonathan's relaxed drumming and the powerful riffs, the band swapped instruments on this song, drove them to call Cheech Marin to see if he wanted to be involved. Cheech came down personally to add his own vocal track. Got the Life releases the pop potential in Korn with a distinctive Bee Gees influence on the disco beat. Shocked by themselves, the band almost left this song off the album. Freak on a Leash is more obviously the Korn of old, with Davis stripping the nature of fame to the mannequin paraded before its public. Its accompanying video won the award for Best Hard Rock Clip at the Billboard Music Video Awards, following 2 MTV Video Music Awards including Best Rock Video. Pretty, one of the group's most controversial songs, harks back to Davis's aforementioned experience in the morgue of dealing with the body of the baby which had been brutally abused and killed by its father. Justin was written for a boy suffering from cancer that the band met through a charity. The boy stayed with his heroes for days and was able to watch them put the song together. Jonathan told the press just how much the experience meant to him and of how much it had meant to the boy. Fieldy told Music News that Follow the Leader was his favorite record. Davis was modest. The first album was just screaming. The second was screaming with a little bit of singing. The third is singing with a little bit of screaming. It's just fine-tuning. Korn Campaign 98 was the album's promotional tour that seemed half military campaign and half presidential campaign. The jaunt saw up to 7,000 fans attending individual launches around the states as the band toured 15 cities to promote the album. Friends and family joined with fans for in-store promotions, while Korn planned live coverage of the official launch on their revamped website. Elsewhere in the world, while it also went straight to the top in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, it enjoyed top 10 status in the UK, Holland, Japan, Finland, Norway, and France. With the development of CD-ROM drives as music players, Korn also received the very first Silicon CD Award, a kind of high-tech gold disc. When Dan Quayle famously called for the reinstating of family values, little did he anticipate the Rock and Roll Monster Tour to be born in that name. Kicking off in September 1998, Family Values was Korn's answer to Lollapalooza, which many industry observers felt had lost its edge. Korn had dropped out of the tour due to Monkey's illness the previous year, but had been planning to launch their own tour for 2 years. The initial lineup for the first Family Values dates also included Orgy, Limp Bizkit, Ice Cube, and Rob Zombie, who would ultimately be replaced by German band Rammstein. Korn telegrammed Dan Quayle to let him know that this metal hip-hop punk ramble around the USA was in tribute to him. Needless to say, there was no reply from the Quayle camp. Despite, or perhaps because of the harsh nature of the bill, this inaugural Family Values tour proved to be a massive commercial success, helped considerably by the expert planning. The tour opened in Rochester, New York, pushing through Wisconsin, Illinois, Colorado, Arizona, California, Nevada, and seemingly every other state. The blend of music was an incredible success, and it was fabulous to see the reception given to Ice Cube by the largely white audiences, with the seminal rapper appearing alongside a huge statue of himself as his stage set. Till Lindemann of Rammstein sported a burning jacket, wore spark-shooting boots, and used a flamethrower amongst other props. The tour was a huge success, averaging around 9,000 fans a night and grossing $250,000 per city on ticket sales alone. Korn were now hitting all the right buttons commercially, with a #1 album under their belts as well, but they still courted controversy. In spring 1999, news seeped out that another Korn album was in production and planned for an October release. The recording actually began in June, before the band's appearance at Woodstock '99. Recording sessions would be broadcast on the internet. When I was a kid, I would have loved it if a band I liked did that, Davis told the media.
We went through about 5 million producers.
Through a whole bunch of producers.
And then he came up, and he showed up with a 12-pack of Coors Light. We said, "You're hired."
He came in with beer.
He did.
And then really what did it for us when he came in and worked with us.
You mean if I would have taken by a 12-pack of
hired.
Coors and
Well, that would have worked for the first day, yeah, but when you actually had to get down and work, then we had to talk. But it was cool.
The first single from the new album, Falling Away From Me, was premiered on the Halloween edition of South Park in October. Even better, the band appeared in the show as cartoon characters. Falling Away From Me included a track absent on the album, Jingle Balls. Yeah, an alternative take on that Christmas song, as well as a solo vocal version of the single itself. The new album, entitled Issues, was released in November 1999. The cover, which shows a discarded children's toy, was designed by Alfredo Carlos, winner of a competition set by the band themselves. The proud 23-year-old attended a launch for the album at his local Tower Records, joining the band for a signing. Some 2,000 people attended that one event alone, a fact reflected nationally by the record's first week sales figures of an astonishing 500,000 copies, easily enough to fire Korn to the Billboard #1 slot. Along with their high profile came immense back catalog sales, with combined figures for the first 3 records topping 15 million. On tracks like Wake Up, the total Korn assault is still evident. Huge riffs, hip-hop rhythms, and a grating, stunning vocal performance. The album might almost have been titled Alienation on Trash. Davis sings of his permanent state of hate, and nowhere is this theme more obvious than on Beg for Me, where Davis works out the constant turmoil in his own mind. Fans had their first chance to hear the entire album at a preview gig at the famous Apollo Theater in Harlem, the home of African-American music for decades, where such giants as Ray Charles, James Brown, and Stevie Wonder had appeared. A police bagpipe band and a choir joined Korn on stage, but no rap featured in the show. 3 alternative sleeve designs were released for issues, featuring the artwork of runners-up in the aforementioned competition. Engaging further in the ongoing dialogue with their fans, the band promised their audience the opportunity to dictate the set list for their forthcoming Spring 2000 tour. Starting in February, this would cover the United States before moving on to Italy, France, Germany, Belgium, Poland, Holland, Spain, and Portugal by the end of June. By late '99, the phenomenon of Korn seemed unstoppable. Jonathan Davis, a Pied Piper of rock, hip-hop, metal, punk, and pop, leading hordes of fans across the world in the wake of his cathartic, bruising self-healing. A world away from the mortuary slab, indeed, in many ways, instead of dealing with the dead, Korn are helping to heal the living. Korn have blended every essential feature of commercial rock music into a format that seems unbeatable. So many of modern rock's dark bands peddle their black-edged music for commercial gain. Korn, however, draw on a legion of traumatic and disturbing experiences to fuel their catalog of ultra-hard, deeply confrontational music. Lead singer Jonathan Davis is at the heart of this maelstrom, and his enigmatic brilliance, plus the band's legacy of dazzling, raucous live shows, have helped make Korn one of the world's most abrasive and yet commercially massive bands. "We've got chemistry," Davis told Kerrang! Magazine. "We beat the system. We're out there making money, and we're doing what we really believe in." And there are millions of Korn fans around the world believe in them too.